Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, OC Steve. So you're probably looking for new content, and Netflix just recently dropped Jupiter's Legacy. This is a property that was created by Mark Millar. If that name's familiar to you, he has a long history of creating comic book storylines and also original properties. He is the guy. This lovable little Scotsman is responsible for bringing you Old Man Logan, which would eventually turn into Logan, which would be kind of the conclusion of Hugh Jackman's long, illustrious run as Wolverine. That was where they originally got the source material from to make that movie. He was also responsible for creating Marvel's Civil War event back in the early thousands that would lead to Captain America Civil War with Marvel Studios. He was also even responsible for bringing you the Ultimates. Now, this was an IP in the early thousands where they just wanted to relaunch everything with new writers, new takes, new artwork on traditional Marvel concepts and bring them into the modern age. The whole premise of the Ultimate Universe was, what if Spider-Man, what if the Avengers and all the other Marvel original created characters came into existence right smack dab in the year 2000. That's where it was based on. A good chunk of the Ultimates was pretty much the foundation for Marvel's The Avengers films, bringing back Captain America, many of the Avengers that are in there. The more edgier Hawkeye and Black Widow ideas came from Mark Millar's Ultimates. So he was under contract with Marvel Comics for a decade and change. Now, while he was with Marvel, he still wanted to make original ideas. So a lot of other people that were under contract with Marvel at the time, Marvel was trying to play nice and let them still create original content. So they created their own imprint called Icon. Now, Millar would go on in Icon to make a lot of properties, one of them being known as Kingsman, the Secret Service, which spawned 2 films. We still have a third one on the way called The King's Man, which is kind of a prequel to The Kingsman. So you get to see where they originally came from, how they came into existence, and how they became this kind of clandestine super agent agency slash MI6 slash James Bond in the Mark Millar world. Well, he also created another property under the Icon imprint called Kick-Ass, which would go on as well to make many films. They got 2 right now. Nick Cage was in it as kind of this Batman-esque character. It helped create the Hit Girl character, which then, Millar would expand upon and create more comic book properties, continuing the narrative of Kick-Ass. So in 2004, while all of this was going on, Millar decided to create his own separate imprint for all of his properties, where they would all be collected under that. So if he wanted to opt them for movies, comic books, other kinds of content down the line, he could do so. And that was his little birth child called Millarworld. So he would go on to create that. And now the new flagship title that's a part of this massive deal that he has done with Netflix, he pretty much sold all of the Millarworld properties and exclusive media content rights to Netflix. And Netflix is just picking it apart right now. Some things are getting made into series. Some things are just getting made into films because they're not too sure about this. But Jupiter's Legacy was kind of this property that's been circling around in development since about 2015. And then eventually Netflix decided that it was going to be a series. They were able to move forward with that. They're like, no, we're not going to give it a big theatrical run. It's going to be a series. And we're going to take a couple of these things and turn them into film series because there's enough content there. Jupiter's Legacy has had a bunch of books. It's even had 2 volumes of it. So this was created by Mark Millar and Frank Quitely. If Frank is a familiar name, he is also the artist that was behind this massive run of New X-Men with Grant Morrison. So this got turned into a show. I watched the first episode just recently, just came fresh off of it. So I wanted to provide you my thoughts and comments pertaining to the show. Now, this is Frank's artwork. Looks great. Very impactful. Very sleek. Very complimentary with the designs and the layouts of the show. I wish that the first episode did it justice. This doesn't look great at all. This is like a bad cosplay production value. I mean, you look at this guy. This guy looks like he's off the set of Power Rangers, if you will. And then you got Josh Duhamel being the utopian. So the whole premise of Jupiter's Legacy, it is the golden age of heroes based and created by Mark Millar. So all of these golden age heroes that were created at the height of World War II, your Captain Americas, your Supermen, your Wonder Woman, your Zipper, your all these other kinds of heroes. Mark Millar wanted to hit the reset button and retell heroes in his own world, if you will, that were created during the golden age, and then would eventually go on to have kids. And then you would see the conflict between the first generation of heroes versus the second generation, which is their offspring. And that's the initial kind of grinding area of Jupiter's Legacy. Do they continue to hold true to the values and the code of conduct that were laid out by guys like the Utopian, which is, for all intents and purposes, that world's Superman, if you will? He does not kill. He does not interfere in global theater, wars, or politics. He only helps out when things are about to be ultimately Earth cataclysmic is when he gets involved, and he doesn't kill. He only disables. Well, the first episode, the cat's out of the bag because they kill this dude, his son, for that matter, who's kind of trying to follow in his own dad's image, kills this guy. The daughter is kind of estranged. She decided not to take up the superhero lifestyle and is more going after glitz, glamour, and fame, and is a supermodel. So you see her struggling with her own personal daddy issues. Well, amp that up by 10 if your dad was Superman in that world. And these characters don't age. Like, so you see them at different points. It's kind of very reminiscent of Highlander. Like, they all start out in the early the late 1920s. That's when they get their powers, and now it's set in modern day. So these characters would easily be, in their 90s or even over their hundreds for that matter. And they have kids who are in their late 20s and 30s. So that's kind of weird to see a guy like Josh Duhamel play somebody in his 20s to only jump forward and portray somebody who's still muscular and buff and beard bound in his 90s. Like, I've seen guys like Stan Lee, and it's just not imaginable to me to see somebody at that age still have these kinds of muscles and heroes. It's just too much for my suspension of disbelief to follow along. Plus, the aging effects in this show are very bad. This was a great, Mark Millar made a killing off of this property. He made a lot of money off of it to give Netflix this. And then whoever decided to produce it, because the core of this show is great. It's written well. It has a great concept. But the problem is it's just too late to the dance. We've seen this too many times where this isn't even tropes. This is just a level of redundancy now. Because, to be the edgy heroes, we've seen it in the Zack Snyder universe. To have family conflict amongst heroes, we've seen that with the Umbrella Academy. And my problem is I've just come off of a major high of watching animated Invincible, which did the source material justice and even amped it up to that next level of violence, action, suspense, and character development and character relationships. This is the shallow end of the comic book adaptation pool, if you will. It's almost a kiddie pool. It would be a disservice to even try to put it in the same area of Invincible or the Umbrella Academy for that matter, because the production value is horrid. This is like bad Sci-Fi Channel movie level development. And after the first episode, it was just hard for me to continue with it. I might pick it up a little bit later, but knowing where this came from, knowing the guy who made it, it just doesn't do his concepts, his ideas, his stories, and his vision justice on this Netflix adaptation. Now, there's some other stuff in the Millar world that is cooking in development right now. Like I said, there's a couple of them. Prodigy is another one that's getting a film treatment. So if it continues, who knows where that's going to go. The idea is it's based around this kid or this young adult who is the best at everything ever. He's an Olympian. He is a member of Mensa. There's really no challenge that he cannot tackle and overcome. So then with that in mind, he's the best at shooting, the best at athlete, the best mind. The world's governments come to him to solve their problems. So he's this super genius wet work guy that's going to be handling the world's major problems. That's Prodigy. Another property, I don't know that'll necessarily see the light of day, but right now it's being developed with Netflix as an anime series, is Super Crooks. And the animation studio that's doing that is Studio Bones. Now, if that name is familiar, they are the guys that are currently doing My Hero Academia. So I have this is a very neat idea, and it's set within the world of Jupiter's Legacy, where it's more of these kind of B-level heroes and crooks that live in America that are always defeated and always incarcerated by top-tier heroes. Well, what if you took these B-level villains and put them in another country that, one, maybe wasn't equipped to handle them, or two, didn't even have heroes? So they could finally go for maybe not the big score in the United States, but just as big a score in maybe Spain, where Super Crooks takes place. So I think this will be kind of neat because it's like Ocean's 11 with villains who have some powers. So they're going to try to have to get ahead of the police and still get off their scam and get their big score and still stay under the radar so other heroes don't pay attention to what's going on. So I think in this context, because it's going to be animated by a great studio, I have high hopes for this. Not so much Jupiter's Legacy. Jupiter's Legacy could have been something that could have been adapted to animation. After watching Invincible, it creates a strong argument that not everything needs a live action treatment. Sometimes you can have hyper stylization that'll look great in the frame of animation. Now, the one thing that I don't know will get off the ground, but that I do want to see it, is a property of Mark Millar's called Nemesis. And the whole premise of Nemesis is, what if you had a super rich person, a Bruce Wayne, if you will, that decided not to fight crime, but to embrace crime? So the whole premise is what if Bruce Wayne became the Joker? Horrible, tragic events happen to his family, so he decides to learn about the criminal element and to exact revenge on the people that murdered his family by becoming the biggest criminal and becoming the biggest villain in the world. It has some over-the-top action moments. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but it's heavy on the violence, and it's very in tune to Mark Millar's design. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's unapologetic. It's un-PC. I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day, but if it does, I'd be amazed and be happy if this property got adapted. So that's just kind of my thoughts for right now. I'm still trying to digest Jupiter's Legacy. It's just a hard sell after we've seen so many great adaptations as of late, especially since we've been starved for content and we've been starved for pop culture superhero related content, for that matter, that's very good. So it just was not my cup of tea. It's very low on the production value. So it's going to be a hard sell to a mainstream audience to convince them to pick this up and actually watch it. This actually looks worse than Amazon's version of The Tick. And that was intentionally done with a production style to be tongue-in-cheek, to be a parody of superhero films. This just comes off as bad cosplay. And I've seen great cosplay over the 20 or so years that I've attended San Diego Comic-Con. So that's my thoughts and my comments for now. Let me know what you thought of Jupiter's Legacy, but more importantly, let me know what is your favorite Mark Millar property and what is that property, your hopes that it's going to be made into an animated series, a film series, a TV series, or just that you're going to be happy that it gets out there. So let's keep the discussion going in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'm just having fun shedding some light on pop culture and want to keep the conversation going. And more importantly, I want to invite you along for the ride. So I hope you have a good day. I hope you enjoy some great pop culture, and I'll catch you on the next one.